To have this conversation. Why did it take Netanyahu 4 days to answer the phone?
I don't know, but 4 days. I'm sure you'd understand that our Prime Minister's schedule is very tight from Saturday, but our relationship with our friends with the UK is very, very close. And by the way, that's my opportunity to thank the support of Britain and the Royal Air Force on Saturday night, when over 300 drones and suicide drones and missiles were fired over to Israel. We can see the images there. I have to say, for people like me watching from TV, it really seemed like an apocalyptic movie. And of course, our families and friends are all in Israel, and no one knew if those missiles would reach the ground and what damage they would have done. So really, we're thanking our friends, including the UK, for their steadfast support and for all the help.
And of course, I appreciate that Netanyahu has been busy, of course, since Saturday. However, the report saying that he was refusing to speak initially to anyone who would tell him that calm heads would be necessary in the coming days, and not to retaliate against Iran. Do you believe, although we are ally nations, that Netanyahu would listen to Rishi Sunak and other allies when they say now is not the time for retaliation?
Well, we always listen very carefully to what our allies have to say. But you have to understand, Iran has been trying for the last 45 years to annihilate Israel through their proxies, through Hezbollah, through Hamas, through the Houthis. And Iran is also the one who are destabilizing the whole, not only the Middle East, but the whole world. I'd like to remind you that even on UK soil, I think it was 2 weeks ago, one of the Iranian journalists who opposes the Iranian regime was stabbed here in London. And that's just one example out of many. These are the same Iranians that are sending weapons and missiles to Russia in order to attack Ukraine. So
I couldn't agree with you more. We were having this conversation earlier about Iran. We know about the proxies, and we know, I mean, we've been saying it, I've been saying it for months, that evil axis, Russia, China and Iran, is a major threat to the world. What I'd really love to get from somebody who works in the Israeli embassy is this. A week ago, this country and other global powers were saying, Netanyahu, with respect, the atrocities of the 7th of October, we are with you, but the humanitarian disaster that is unfolding is causing people to feel less comfortable, I think, as days went by. Sure. There were debates here, should we be providing arms? This happened on Saturday night, as you say, 300 missiles and drones headed towards Israel, taken down by forces, including ours. Has that strengthened your Prime Minister's position at home? Because it would not be unfair to say that there are critics inside Israel who say the bombing of the Syrian embassy in Damascus was a provocative attack. Hear me out, right? I know about the 45 years, because that legitimised what happened, and suddenly Benjamin Netanyahu isn't at odds with the world. The world is now firmly behind Israel. Is your Prime Minister putting personal ambition ahead of peace in the Middle East? Serious question.
I understand your question, but I'd like to say that Iran doesn't care who our Prime Minister is. It doesn't matter to Iran who our Prime Minister is. Yeah. For them, the goal is to destroy Israel and destroy the West. And our own game is to deter Iran from attacking Israel again. And I'm sure you'd understand, as better than anyone else, basically, that sometimes not doing anything is getting things worse.
Sure, I get that.
So we don't want to get any revenge. We want to deter them from ever again trying to send 300 or 500 or 10,000 of missiles over to Israel and to the whole region.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I mean, one of our ex-generals said this morning, if that had happened to the United Kingdom, we would have retaliated. And I think it's very interesting that the world is running around. Cameron this morning has said, Lord Cameron, it is clear that the Israelis are making a decision to act after the Iranian attack. We hope they act in a way that does as little to escalate this as possible. Because then, of course, you get to a situation where you've done that, they do this, you do that, and we get nowhere.
What's the feeling among Israeli civilians at the moment? We know that the tides are turning against Netanyahu. He's not a particularly popular Prime Minister at the moment. I understand your position might be compromised in being able to comment on that. But what's the feeling in terms of their general safety?
Yeah.
Are people supportive of retaliatory action? Or would Israelis much prefer that this wasn't escalated and that they could go back to living their lives in a level of peace, although I understand for 45 years it's not exactly been peaceful?
Well, I think every Israeli you will ask today will tell you that they are thriving to live in peace with their neighbors. By the way, Israel has a proven track record of peace achieving with our Arab neighbors. The Arab countries that are willing to recognize our right to exist are countries that we are willing to have peace with. But those countries that are putting all the efforts and money and thought into killing Jews just because we are living in Israel, how can we even talk about...
Sorry, Nick, just very quickly, the interesting thing is if you look at... you just said about the Arab world, there are plenty of countries in the Middle East, in the Arab world, that are very supportive of Israel. I was, this morning they were saying, oh, let's do some sanctions against Iran. I don't think it makes any difference, because as I said earlier, they'll do their business with Russia and China. But I think the fact that Arab countries didn't side with Iran over the weekend, I think that's probably quite important for the future, don't you?
I completely agree with you. I mean, these countries know who Iran is, and this malign force that is trying to destroy the Middle East, destroy the West. I mean, we don't have the same values as in Iran. Iran and their proxies are the ones who murdered women like Mahsa Amini. They are the ones that are hanging on the streets of Tehran LGBT people. These are not countries that we want to align with. On the opposite, and I think and I know that Britain and other countries in the West and also in the Arab world, as you said, understand that Israel is not fighting only for Israel, but for the whole Western world.
You say that Israel wants peace. Why won't Benjamin Netanyahu accept the possibility of a two-state solution?
Well, that's not exact. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said for years that he wants to give all the powers to the Palestinians to govern themselves without having the ability to threaten us. And at the moment, we are fighting Hamas, who is a proxy of Iran. Hamas, I don't need to remind you, have murdered, butchered, and burned alive hundreds of people on the 7th of October. I carry this all the time with me. We still have 133 hostages in the hands of Hamas.
Do you believe, Orly, do you believe those hostages are still alive?
I'm really hopeful that some hostages are still alive. We know that many of them have been murdered by Hamas, and we know that those who are still alive are being subjected to horrible treatment. We know that women are being raped. We know that people there have been, living a horrible moment.
And the thing is, surely...
So we need to bring them back. And we need the world's support on that as well.
Do you think that's at the forefront of Benjamin Netanyahu's mind at the moment, is to bring the hostages back?
Of course, it has never left the war cabinet for a second.
And when you, just very quickly, when people who don't understand the depth of how Jewish people feel about October the 7th only have to think about the atrocities, however many years ago it was, and that's why there was that outpouring. Listen, I could talk to you all day, I'm sure we both can, but thank you very much indeed for taking time.
Thank you for having me.
Right?